Uncover the wisdom of the feminine through soulful conversations on spirituality, healing, relationships, self-leadership, sovereignty, and so much more. I'm your host, Tamar Gale, feminine embodiment facilitator, feminine arts mentor, and soul tantrika. In this podcast, my goal is to take you deeper into the world of the feminine, stepping more into your feminine pleasure, power, authentic truth, and your sovereignty. Welcome to the Feminine Codes podcast. Today I'm having a conversation with Eva Benmeleh. I hope I said that correctly.
Yeah.
But today we're going to be speaking on the divine feminine, divine masculine, and spiritual bypassing with perfectionism. So I'm going to hand it over to Eva to introduce herself and what she does in the world so that you have a moment to just really get to know her and her work.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. So, I work as a clinical psychologist, and my role as a clinical psychologist is to unravel the perfectionistic tendencies in many of us. When I started on this path of perfectionism, I thought it was just a couple of us who had these tendencies. And the more that I look into it, the more it applies to each and every one of us. When we have these unrealistic high expectations or this inner critic that really wants us to succeed at all costs, or the judgmental aspect of ourselves that is constantly on guard to make sure we're in the right company or on the right path. It really impacts every aspect of everybody's life. And at first, my work was, okay, how do we overcome perfectionism? And the more that I have really delved into it, and especially from the spiritual standpoint, it's never about overcoming, it's about integrating
Mm.
and really just connecting all of these segregated parts of ourself in all shapes and forms and in all types of modalities to really just get to know one another and to become much more of an integrated whole. So my work is as a psychologist. I'm also an author and I do public speaking and they train other therapists on this particular topic because it's not talked about very much and it impacts anxiety and OCD and depression to a really high degree. Yeah.
I think this is a really important topic because do you find, and I'm just really curious, do you find that this tendency towards perfectionism comes from childhood wounding? I know OCD does, and so I'm wondering, like, how does perfectionism play into that?
So, like everything, there's a nature nurture component, right? So we have our genetic imprints that we inherit from past generations. And we know from epigenetics that genes can turn on and off depending on the environment. So if we are raised by perfectionistic type of parents, and that could mean a parent who is on the narcissistic style of the spectrum because perfectionism and narcissism are interrelated, or a parent who is incredibly insecure, right? So the opposite spectrum of that, then perfectionism can begin to play out much more in the child. If there are traumatic experiences that aren't dealt with in a cohesive, functional way, then perfectionism is also a manifestation of that. Because what perfectionism is this desire to control, right? To control outcomes, to control behavior, to control how we show up. It's the perpetual mask. And so in childhood, if we don't have that, which I don't know of anyone who really does, have that perfect picture of containment, of embodiment, then there's going to be masks that are worn for survival of many sorts.
So true. I I have so many different directions that I want to go with this right now, like because I'm just I find this topic so fascinating. I love diving into the subconscious and like and really understanding the aspects of self. So I have so many questions, and I'm gonna try to keep it kind of focused right now because my head's going all over with questions. But I have one question before we get into this spiritual bypassing part of it, because
Mm,
working with women, I see there's a lot of perfectionism when it comes to how we show up in the world, like what we look like on the outside, and even with social media. Like I know when I was growing up, like it was already like a big topic. Like we already had body dysmorphia, we had eating disorders, but we didn't have what they have today. We didn't have the social media, the constant being confronted with the outside world that they do now. The perfectionism mindset that I see and the way women, a lot of women, tend to need themselves to feel perfect, um, to feel desired, to feel loved. It's like they have to be that perfect person on the outside.
yeah.
How how do you see this in your work? Like that perfectionism, that need for perfectionism with the outside world.
So I was reading a book called Addiction to Perfection
Mm.
by Marion Woodman, and she was a Jungian psychoanalyst. She passed away, I think, in 2008. And I also listened to her. I mean, she's like I'm her biggest fan. And she passed away, and then I listened to some of her lectures from the 80s. And it was literally describing what we're living now,
Mhm.
40 years later. So, of course, we can put it on social media because it's left, right, and center wherever we go, right? But this is not a social media issue. This is an issue of the self. So whether we're talking about the 1980s, right, or we're talking about, I don't know, earlier than that, nowadays, the desire to be something that we're not is timeless. And that's why perfectionism is really about integrating it because it's okay to have high standards. It's okay to want more. What's not okay is beating ourselves up in the process of getting there because we're just making it that much more difficult.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because social media is an open canvas, right? You know, we could be listening to or watching tons of different types. It really, it's what we are attracted to that we will watch on social media, right?
Hmm.
Especially nowadays, that anyone can have something to say and do so.
They can, and I see, I mean, and I asked that question because even when I was younger, like I dealt with body dysmorphia
Yeah.
when I was a young teen, anorexia, bulimia, and I had to come out of all of that. And that wasn't, it had something to do with perfectionism, yes.
Yeah.
Um, but I had to find myself through that process and heal through that process and come to a place where, like you love yourself regardless. Like it's like, yes, you want to be healthy, mind, body, spirit, but it's like it's a different type of way to see your body temple. It's a different type of way to see your vessel and like to take care of your body. Um,
100%.
and so I was just curious because I have clients that come and they are dealing with kind of the same issues, um and we work through that in different ways, but I I'm always fascinated to see it from a different perspective, and from especially like your perspective, like you deal with perfectionism, like that
Yeah.
is your passion and your work. And I think that the way that I see it, that also has to do with the masculine and the feminine, like that alchemy within ourselves, that finding the self and that finding balance and discipline and holding that space as our inner masculine for the feminine. And I know that that's something I am skipping all over the place with this topic, but it's just like it's such an incredible topic. And my mind tends to work like that.
Yeah,
So you can reel me back in at any point.
sure.
um, so yes, I think this is really a good place to go into a little bit like deeper of the spirituality of it.
Mm,
If you're
yeah. It for me, the spiritual aspect of psychology is the depth that psychology structure needs. So that even within that, it's the masculine and the feminine. Because psychology obviously in and of itself is deep, but when we don't have the holding of the spirituality, it makes it a little bit fall flat. At least that was my experience of it. And to tie it all together, I suffered from or experienced bulimia as a teenager, right? Because, I don't remember the name of the magazine. It was like 17, I think,
yeah.
or YM. Oh my God, YM magazine. Right. So of course, and then photoshopping was just starting to get in there. I'm 41 years old, so just to give perspective. So um what is it about us that we do so much harm to our body, right? We're so angry with it because we're so disconnected from it. And we don't understand in the process that the body is the vessel to the spirit and that it is all interconnected. When people say mind, body, and spirit, yes, but it's all really aspects of one main thing,
Mhm.
right? So the way that we take care of our body is important, but if all of our thoughts are toxic, then it doesn't matter how much yoga and meditation and healthy nutrition you do, right? Or any kind of exercise, because you're feeding your body all of this negative emotions that are neurochemicals and they're traveling everywhere. And so that's why, I can also go into so many things, but that's why a lot of us can suffer from autoimmune issues later down the road because the body has been constantly fighting itself that at one point it's like, you're not listening to me. I'm done. Here you go. So the spiritual bypass of perfectionism is just that. It is, I am going to have a very specific schedule. I'm going to have a very specific way of organizing and ordering my life so that I can be that perfect person for XYZ, whether it's my family, my career, my friends, my supposed purpose in life. But I'm going to completely neglect everything that I think and feel about myself because that is separate and that is usually negative. And so when we go that route, and people say people pleasing is terrible. Yes, people pleasing is terrible if you don't consider yourself part of the people. So when you start to recognize that whatever you do to yourself is how you are with others, and how you are with others is also how you are with yourself,
Mhm.
then you start seeing the bigger picture of your relationships and how you show up. Because perfectionism, like I keep repeating, is a mask that we wear, that everything is great, but on the inside we're messy. And we are ashamed of saying that we're messy. And a lot of the times, the more well put together we could show up to be, the messier we are inside because we're trying so hard. We're performing, we're not living.
Mm.
So when we begin to just flow into the different aspects of our personality, the messy, the organized, the on time, the late, the super clean, whatever, and we kind of go with the flow, then the perfect aspects of ourselves actually do show up because we're in flow, we're not in resistance, right?
Totally.
And life begins to unfold in these really beautiful ways where all of a sudden you're not rushing anymore because you have extra time. Or you're making space to go for your run and also have breakfast and also work the way you need to and also have meaningful relationships where before you were always running and rushing and sweating like as if you'd run a marathon and really you were just trying to make do. Um, so I don't know if that answers specifically that part, but that bypassing is, I'm going to meditate every day, 4 o'clock in the morning, because that's what's going to make me a spiritual person.
Mhm.
Or I'm going to eat only this because that makes me show up in this manner. Or, um, and then completely disregard if that is or is not good for your body, right? Or while you're meditating, you're totally zen, but then the minute you get out of the meditation, you don't integrate enough because sometimes we can get a little wobbly in our head. And then we take it out on the first person that we see because it had to be perfect. Make sense, you
Makes
know?
total sense. It makes total sense. And I think that like I've had those periods in my life where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna meditate, like I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna meditate every day. And then it's like something else comes up. It's like then used to I would feel like, okay, I'm not doing my spiritual practice.
Mm,
But it's that learning, like you said, that this is a part of the spiritual practice. It's like maybe there is a period where meditation's fantastic and it's really what I need. Maybe there's a period where it's like saying prayers at night or journaling, and that's what I need in that moment. Or maybe it's just taking a walk in nature and
yeah,
connecting, and that's my spiritual practice for that moment.
yeah.
And I think that comes back to like the masculine and the feminine
Mm,
and the ways of doing things. And I don't know about men. I'm obviously not a man and I don't work with men. I work with women. But like as far as like women go, like we have those flows, those ebbs and flows of needing to be more embodied, needing to flow with this, needing to rest for a couple days and like letting like knowing that's okay. And it's that mass that you're talking about. And that's why this is so important because if we don't listen to what our bodies need, if we're trying to be perfect for everyone else, then that burnout happens at
mm,
some point. That's what I've noticed
yeah.
is you burn out, I don't know, maybe it's the period where it's like that dark night of the soul ends up happening. Something happens to get your attention because you're not listening to your body.
Right.
And I
Yeah,
think that's a part of the spiritual, that's the bypassing part of it.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And resting is one of the most productive ways of being productive. I hope at one day in my life, I won't actually even think that way or say that, but it is
Hmm.
because for those of us who like achieving things
Yes.
and living life to its fullest, um, we also need the rest. And what all of this work is really teaching us, in my opinion, is to have very deep authenticity with ourselves. You know when you are sleeping in. You know when you are not getting enough rest. You know when you shouldn't eat that extra. And you know when actually you should. And it's not based on counting calories and it's not based on your Whoop or your watch or whatever. It's based on your own intuition and your own body. But if we're not used to listening, again, it takes a lot for the body to just say, whoa, hello, I've been here. That's why when people tell me, I think I'm depressed, I have anxiety, and I say, congratulations, now we're ready. What do you mean? No, not now you're listening. You weren't listening before. It had to come here. And that's, some people say, why do we have to learn the hard way? I think a lot of us, including myself, we're stubborn. We don't see the signs when we need to take it. And that's also the bypass. The ego sometimes wants to be this overproductive kind of old ladies, like it's, don't. It's like, actually, no, I need to change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think at least here, like here in the US, we grow up with this mentality of you
Yeah.
work hard, you play hard. It's like you don't stop and rest, at least where I come from. And that was a very big shift that I had to make. And I think that it's a lot of Americans, because when I lived in Europe, it's not so much like that where
Mm,
in the European countries that I lived in. they take more time for rest, for family, for downtime. And here we don't. And I think that that is when you are faced with that moment where you have to learn how to listen to your body and actually decipher when you need to slow down and when you need to practice self-care and what self-care actually really looks like and do that. um it's kind of it can be a little bit confronting. And
Or
I
a
it
lot.
was for me, I came to a point right out of college. I went back to college and I graduated when I was 30. So with college. So I went back and I graduated and I was out like looking for a job for a couple months. And I remember at the time my boyfriend that I had, he was like, just enjoy it,
Mm.
just rest. Just like, because I was going to school for 40 hours, I was working 20
Wow.
hours. And so I was like constantly busy.
Yeah.
And he was like, just rest. I was like, I don't know how to. He was
Yeah.
like, well, you need to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I did. And it taught me a lot about taking that time and what it actually meant to like calm my nervous system, like just calm down and just be. And it
Yeah.
was a big, big lesson, but it took me a little time to be able to come to that place where I could do that.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I feel like that's what a lot of people experience when they come to that place of needing to listen to their bodies and stop bypassing what their bodies are needing.
Yeah. Yeah. We are adaptive creatures, so for better or for worse, we will get used to whatever we have, and we can be very comfortably uncomfortable
Mhm.
until we're inspired by one way or another to make a change, because even though we don't know what's on the other side, it must be that much better than what we have going right now. And that takes a lot of guts to say, I don't want to keep living like this. I want to do it differently. Because when you make that choice, everything changes, right? It's your friends will change, your the way you wake up and when you go to sleep and how you eat and if you exercise or not. How you work and how when you work and how often, all of it begins to change because you begin to include yourself in the people. So instead of saying, "Oh, I put myself last on the list, I take care of everyone else first," you start to recognize, actually, I'm taking care of myself through taking care of everyone else, and I don't like this way of taking care of me.
Mhm.
So your mind starts expanding into including yourself, where you have this radical acceptance and this radical honesty. Like, okay, do I want to keep loving myself by being mean to myself or by giving everyone else more? That's how I love myself. And if the answer is no, oh, okay, well, then things start changing and people start asking questions and people start complaining and they're like, but you didn't used to do that. Or now you think you're like this. Oh, you must think you're so special. Or how come you don't talk to me anymore? Or whatever the things are. Or, we try to rest, but we're resting while we're doing our taxes or we're reading something or, because we're like, oh, but this is resting. I'm going to schedule it in. Like, no, that's not it either. But keep going, keep trying, keep going, keep going. At some point, it feels so different that you look back and you're like, wow, I can't believe I was so disconnected from myself back then.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm lucky with where I am in life at the moment, where if I feel like I'm tired, and I'm going to bring this back to a point that you made earlier, because you said something along the lines of, um, oh, what was it? I'm gonna lose it now. It was right on my tongue, but it was about taking a break when you need to. Anyway, it's gonna come to me probably as I say it. Um, when I feel like I need to take a break and I'm
Mhm.
tired and it's the middle of the day, oh, that's what it was. Um, it's the middle of the day and I'm tired. Am I lazy
Mm,
or am I exhausted and actually listening to my body? And that's a
mm,
really big one because
yeah,
when you're raised in a culture like we are, it's like you see needing to take a rest as being lazy.
yeah,
when actually you can tell if you're really being lazy or if it's your body's really needing to rest
Hmm.
and kind of I guess rejuvenate or whatever for to be able to continue going. And I think that was years ago, that was a big place for me. Now I know the difference. Now in the middle of the day, if my energy drops and I'm like, okay, I know that if I lay down for 15 minutes, it might only be five. I might close my eyes and then get a burst of energy and then I'm good. But
Yeah.
it's just that listening to my body, giving
Yeah.
it what it needs, and then I might not even need it. It's just like my body's like, are you listening to me?
Yeah. It's the permission.
It's the permission.
And that's so sweet because when we, especially for those of us who've had eating disorders, we know how to disconnect.
Mhm.
Or for workaholics or whatever, we know how to disconnect incredibly from the body. Or the opposite, where, well, no, it's still a disconnection, for people who binge eat, you just never get full, right? And that's an emotional hunger. That's not a physiological one. So I know I can work hours, even if I'm tired, I forget that I'm tired. And I have to set that reminder. I need to stop because the bypass, the severing is so easy to go to in my head,
Yeah.
right? Now, that on its flip side, on the positive, makes me a very driven person where I have accomplished lots of wonderful things, but because it fuels me and because it's in my head and if I don't materialize it, then it's just going to keep eating away at me. So it's still it's the same. It's just two sides of the same coin, right? And when we judge our behavior, whether it's being lazy or being nurturing, that does tie back to our childhood, right? And so as we start to grow up in the emotional sense, as we start to develop our adult self, our healthy adult self, there's a shedding that happens where we have to make a choice. Are we going to continue to live as the children of our parents, or are we going to live as sovereign adults who make choices and who listen to ourself and that ourself can talk with us, right? And that is very big because if we continue to look at it as I'm like this because of what happened to me, then we have insight and there's an awareness and perhaps a maturity, but it's still in reference to other people who were just as or more than dysfunctional and doing the best that they could.
Mhm.
And that is its whole separate process, right? Because it's hard for our heart to reconcile that. And it's hard for our heart and our self, our mind, our spirit, no, but our mind, our ego to say, I'm accountable for all of my stuff. And that means I'm accountable for when I'm nice to myself.
Mhm.
And I'm also accountable for when I'm not. I can't blame anybody else anymore.
The responsibility, the sovereignty, and it's just such a important word, sovereignty.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is I hope all of you receive this because this is a really important piece to self-love, really.
Mm.
It's just like loving yourself so fully that just your love is nourishing. Like, does that make sense? It's like
Yeah.
you're fulfilling your own cup through being honest with yourself, looking at yourself, being present, being embodied. And that's a lot. It's really a lot to think sometimes with where a lot of us have been disconnected from our bodies
Yeah.
for so long to reconnect and to come back to this place of this deep self-love because that's how I see it. It's
Yeah.
like having gone through body dysmorphia and bulimia, whatever all those things were, and understanding what I had done to myself through my own understanding at that young age,
Yeah.
it was all about now it's about self-love and that really honoring everything within me,
Mm-hmm.
within the self.
Yeah. And that process is a process, right?
Mhm.
Because we are human. We
Yeah.
all have the spiritual soul side, but we are also human. And as humans, we have to wrap our mind around these concepts and shed these expectations and these belief systems. But these belief systems, they're like, I don't know, sometimes I describe them as like the spider vein, right? You have the spider vein with all the different parts, but then there's that one that if you zap that one, then all of them fall. It's a domino effect, right? So to zap that belief system of I can love my body despite the fact that perhaps my mom never did, my grandmother didn't, or they were super critical, or they were unhappy. I could be happy and it could still be part of the system. That would mean that I would be different, but also the same. And it's hard because we have very strong attachments to being part of community, to being part of being held. And when we come to terms with, oof, the way that I love myself is actually detrimental. It's still love because I'm being critical, so I could save myself from whatever future things I think are going to happen. Um, or to fit in the warped ways that that works, then that means that, again, everything also has to change. And for people who go through this, including myself, it's okay, but come home to yourself, come home to yourself, come back. So you're feeling left out. Well, what can you do to feel good with yourself? Right? How do you make sense of things for you? And that's where the meditation, where the exercise, where the dancing, where all of the things that we do, all of the practices, therefore reconnecting back home here in our heart, say, okay, even if everyone left, even if I left and I moved to another country and I'm all by myself and I have to start all over, I'm with myself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And having been someone who's done that
Yeah.
many times, that piece is so important to be good with yourself, to be happy within self,
Yeah.
and regardless of outside circumstances. Uh, Such an important piece. Um,
And it doesn't happen overnight. I
it
know
does
for me it
not.
didn't.
It's it does not happen overnight. That is a process. It is a
Yeah.
process of deepening and letting go and shedding and
Yeah.
yeah, coming back to self and with practices, as you mentioned, like meditation and dance and whatever that is for you, because everyone's different.
Right.
Everyone's different. So what is it for you that like fills you up that you need in that particular moment, not some set thing of I have to do this because this is what I'm told, or this is what, like someone else does. And so that's going to be right for me. Like, what is right for you?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I
So,
think
go ahead.
sorry, no,
Yeah.
go ahead. No, I think that the somatic work is really important
Mm.
when it comes to perfectionism, um, because reconnecting to how the body feels in all of the ways, right? Whether it's through exercise or dance or anything that could be sensual or anything, it's like just expanding the awareness of what it is for this person to have the human experience without the shame. Because a lot of the times we don't go there because, oh, I'm so embarrassed or I'm ashamed or I don't trust. And the visceral experience helps reorganize the thoughts.
Does. And I see that a lot, especially with the yoga that I teach.
Mm,
Especially when I teach in a group, which is super powerful because when you have women that come together and you do the work together, like you're, it's just the energy becomes amplified
yeah,
and whatever is wanting to move through you, like you're faced with it You are. And I remember going through the training myself, and it's very somatic. It could be, it's sensual, it's fully embodied. And you will have women laughing, you'll have women crying, you'll have women having orgasms just from the movement of energy in their body. And if you're if something in you is being triggered and coming up to be faced,
Yeah.
you're facing it. Whereas you wouldn't face it if you're by yourself. You might just stop. You might just like close down. You can. Some women do when they close down, just because even with themselves, it's confronting. You're ashamed to even express vulnerability or emotion or intimacy.
Yeah.
But when you're with a group, it can also be like it's powerful because it brings that up to you. Like, where are your blocks? Where are your walls? What can you break through? And in order to become more fully you, more access more of yourself. And I will share this story because I had this come up for me years ago in a training that I was in. And it was so beautiful, and I witnessed it. And this is the only reason I'm bringing it up with this story of the yoga, because there was a girl in one of my trainings, and we had this beautiful like practice that we were doing. I think we had like dirt on the ground, and we got to like, part of the play was like playing with the dirt and really activating our inner child and just like being playful and innocent. And this beautiful woman that I was in this training with, she just took off her clothes. She took off her
Mm.
clothes. She got naked. She's grabbing the dirt. She's just like putting it on her, and she's just in her innocence and just like feeling the moment. And I looked at her and I was like, wow, how beautiful. And
Mm.
I can't let myself go there.
Mm.
And so it brought up for me that boundary that I had of the shame that I had and what I needed to break through. It was never like a judgment on her. It was like I saw my own judgment on myself
Yeah.
and where my boundary was with myself, where that shame, that wall was, and what I needed to work on. And it was like, wow, this is really like, this is real. This is raw. This is true for me. And how do I overcome that? How do I access and let myself be more innocent and more free to where I can enjoy life like that?
Yeah.
And that was a really like aha moment for me. That was really a powerful, like the mask that I was wearing in that moment,
Yeah.
or that I had been wearing in my life, and noticing, like recognizing that mask in that moment.
And it's so beautiful that you took it that way, right?
Yeah.
That you were so honest with yourself, like, oh, she's showing me something about me
Mm.
instead of, oh, look at her.
Yeah.
Then you have the choice. Do you want to partake or not?
Mm.
And wherever you decide to take it is fine, right?
It is.
Because you have full dominion over your body and who sees it and to what capacity. And it is when we have these examples in life of people who are acting more freely than us. It's an invitation, right? And maybe we do and maybe we don't. I've had those experiences too where I'm like, wow, like check that out. Could I ever do that? And then I try and I'm like, you know what? I'm scared because this is uncomfortable, but look at that. Nothing happened to me,
Mhm.
right? It's so much of it is a buildup.
It is.
And perfectionism with anxiety, they're very related because anxiety is our imagination gone awry. So when we're so stuck in our imagination of how everything's going to go wrong, when we have the experience and none of it comes true,
Mhm.
or it comes out the complete opposite, then that gets cemented in the mind and the brain, like, okay, this is your new reference point, not the one that you thought would be, but now this one, this is the real one.
Expansion.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
In one way or another, it's expanding you, your sense of self.
Because that's the question is control. Oh my gosh, if I get naked in front of all of these women or men or both, what will they think of me? What will I do? Will they consider me this, or that? Will they make a pass on me? Will that mean that I should? All of these things start unraveling. And when we recognize that, again, how you express yourself with your body is completely yours to choose.
That's sovereignty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then that's one less thing that you feel like you have to be um, shying away from or feeling nervous about because you're the one who calls the shots, not everyone else, because you are included in those people. You are a people. You are a part of that. Right? I don't know if I'm
Yes.
explaining it well, but it takes us out of that victim blaming or victimizer. It's just no, I'm in control here.
Full control.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, do you have, like, in regards to this, do you have any advice or a little tip or anything that you feel could benefit this community of women that are listening in regards to this sense of like perfectionism and spiritual bypassing? Like, is there any, are there, is there a practice that you do in
Yeah.
particular around when you see this coming up for yourself?
Yeah. It's a lot has to do with shadow work,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
And a lot of it is learning how to handle when we are in, and we could call it whatever we want, inner child, in our parts, where our higher self, our adult self, is not online, and other parts are online and they're taking over. Because we all have all of these shades, right? And that's why I was saying perfectionism is not like, ooh, that one's a perfectionist. No, we all have those tendencies, especially if we're in tune with how much we want to accomplish in this life. So it's really looking at our shadow. It's really looking at, okay, this part of me is coming up and it's trying to get something out of it. What is it? Or how much am I still acting like my parents' daughter and not like me?
Mm.
And that could be in rebellion, right? Oh, I'm not going to do this because that's what they used to do, or that's what they think I should be doing. And even if we're adults, we could still have these conversations in our thoughts in our mind. Or, oh, I should do this because that's the right thing. That's how I was raised. Or if I don't, then I'm the black sheep. And if I'm the black sheep, then I'll be excommunicated. Then what am I going to do? And then I'm going to hang out with these people. But what if they don't like me? And then the whole spiral. So, what do I do specifically when I'm in my spiral? And I can get very mean with myself. I tend to take time for myself and I'm alone. And I journal, or I cry, or I go for a run, or I eat a lot of chocolate, or I sit with myself. I try not to involve other people as much anymore, unless I really need some sort of strategic help, and then I'm calling, or I want to share, but I don't typically do that when I'm at the height of it because that's just involving and entangling someone that doesn't need to be there for that. Um, and this is after years of learning how, right? So it's not like, oh, I'm special, or oh, I've got some gift that others don't. It's just you put in the practice and you put in the work and you learn what works specifically for you. And there's nothing wrong with having a talk with someone about your feelings, but when you are entangling them and putting yourself in, I'm a victim and they did this to me, it's like it's a short-lived gratification. Um, So looking at that, and for many of us who have these tendencies, we could be really hard on ourselves. So the inner critic has a blast when we're like, oh, let's do shadow work. Let's see all the parts that are bad. But it's also like, actually, let's see all of the parts that want to come out. Like maybe you just want to cancel that birthday dinner and you want to go do something else instead. Can you be that person?
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's being honest, but with compassion, not cutthroat,
Hmm.
honest.
Mm. Yeah, the voice activation, like really, I think the compassion's a big part of it. Like how
Yeah.
learning how to communicate or not communicate, as you were saying, like when to and when not. And then when you do, how are you communicating? What needs to come up to come out to come across? And maybe that's that sacred no. Like, how do you say that? Like you were saying, maybe you want to cancel the birthday and you need to just stay home and take care of yourself. Can you do that?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, that's, I think my is kind of very similar for myself, the practices that I do. It's like it's more like the self-soothing, maybe the journaling, the walks in nature help me so much.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be in nature, whether it's walking or sitting and meditating on nature, and maybe a good bath or the chocolate's always amazing just to have a piece of dark chocolate,
Yeah.
maybe with peanut butter on top. It's like
Sure. The
it's like a
best.
new treat that I just figured out. I don't know how I just figured this out. Spreading peanut butter on top of chocolate. Oh my gosh.
So good. Yeah,
But but yeah, it's just that's kind of the self-soothing, the mothering myself.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because we all have that mother
Mm.
and we choose. We choose our parents, right? They say that. But the mother within us, we choose how she shows up. And we choose to talk back to her. And
Mhm.
we choose if we want hugs from her or if we want something else, right? The yelling. But it's a constant conversation. So there is compassion, but there's radical honesty. And sometimes it's sitting with, oh my gosh, I could be that person too. I could also be as mean, as demeaning, as obnoxious, as narcissistic, as selfish, as blah, 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 as the person that I'm pointing the finger at. I could be just as nice, as caring, as loving, as funny, as beautiful, as carefree as the person I'm pointing the finger at. So now what?
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Wonderful point there, because I think the reflection back, that mirror, really helps. It really helps with seeing ourselves
Yeah.
truly, truly, and moving through that shadow work. Um, yeah, I guess I'm going to open it up. If you have anything else that you would like to share on this topic, and the floor is yours. If not, then how do people find you? And I will put your link in there, but I'm going to open up the floor for anything else that you would like to share on this.
The only thing I'd like to share is be courageous and have faith to be humble,
Mm,
right? It's a beautiful balance of the tensions. The more humility you have, the more courageous you are, and the more faith you have. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. Just be you. Just be you. And when you're starting this process, because spiritual awakening is intense and it's beautiful, but it's also very painful. Just know that there's light always guiding you, and you're always held, and there's always people that will show up, some shape or form, that will be there to support you. You are never alone.
mm,
And that is that's my final thing to say about that, because a lot of times the reasons we wear the masks and we act a certain type of way is because we're so afraid that now what? But I really think that there's a benevolence here in this life, and people just are always around in many ways to help us out. Um, and so how to find me? So I'm on Instagram. It's dr dot my name, Eva Benmeleh. My website is the same. It's drevabenmeleh.com. No dot after the dr. And yeah, and we can work together one on one or in group. I came out with 4 journals for moms that talk about body image, that talk about self identity and purpose, that talk about setting compassionate boundaries and dropping the mom guilt. Um, and so those are there for purchase, and my courses will be coming out hopefully by the end of this year. Yeah.
Congratulations on the journals. I saw that and whenever we were on one of our communications. Congratulations. That's
Thanks.
amazing. And then I think so important for mothers, so important for mothers to have some tools like that.
Yeah,
So,
what it's learning how to be with ourselves, right? Through journaling, through mantras and meditations. It's all the tools to help be in conversation. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah.
yeah, thank you for coming on today. And I know women are going to receive this. Like, this is such an important conversation, and I can't wait to have more of them. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge and beautiful wisdom around this topic. And until next time.
Yeah. Thank you so much.